So we're going to begin right here. The Logos is a primordial spirit of reason, a concept promoted by the Stoics. Yesterday I said write down the word stoic. Stoic. So we can write down the word stoic. We're going to do a review as we get into a broader expansion on this. The Stoics perceive the Logos as the mind of Jupiter. When you look at Jupiter, Jupiter was the supreme deity of the ancient Romans. Say, write down
Right.
write down the word Roman. Write down the word Romans. Write down the word Rome as well. But the main word being Roman. We're going to see how they did a reversal on and we saw yesterday how they did a reversal, an inversion of the name of the word Roman and made it Namor. All right? Made it Namor. We're going to get to that. And Jupiter is further described as Jove or Jehovah, all right? Jehovah or Jove, that's a contraction of the word Jehovah. Just like Yah is a contraction of the word Yahuwah, all right? And you all remember that Jay-Z, the rapper, took on the name Hova, all right? Hova, for a shortened version of Jehovah, all right? And y'all know that he's at the top of the hip hop game, you know. And so don't translate that. Just understand that he used a scientific technique to get him exactly what he wanted. So Jove is the god of the sky and the chief of the gods. And it is what, when you hear God the Father, it's actually referring to Jupiter. All right? Follow it. The Logos is credited with appealing to the hearer's sense of logic. So again, now see, we're talking about this aspect of this one language. We're speaking English, but is the logic program, is the Logos program translating what is being said to you? We got to point that out today. With the definition of logic being concerned with a thing as it is known, only as it's known. So in popular culture, there was a personification of the Logos, of logic, and we saw it, Star People, with Star Knowledge. We saw it in the television program and a very popular television program called Star Trek, Star People. And it was personified in the character Spock, Mr. Spock. And it was actually a dual personification in the relationship between Dr. McCoy, who was the chief science officer on the Enterprise, on the Starship Enterprise. Think about that name for a second.
Yeah.
And his relationship with Spock. So it looked like two characters, but it was actually one character in conflict. All right. Spock, in his physical appearance, appeared like a divine being. They deliberately made him look to appear like a divine being. McCoy, but Spock was governed by logic, which is the language of humanity. It is the human program, reason,
Right.
logic, rationale. So he was locked into, this was a divinity that was locked into a representation of divinity, locked into
Right.
human thought and human perception.
Right.
McCoy was very human. He angered, got irritated easily, angered easily, and would cuss Spock out on occasion, and would really be aggravated with Spock because he was such of a stoic. Now remember, Romans, the concept rather of logic, the logos, and reason as being the primordial or the first spirit was conceptualized by the Stoics. So, of course, Spock had to demonstrate that in his manner. Stoic means a person who represses feelings or endures patiently, indifferent to pleasure or pain. This is why they were always in conflict, Dr. McCoy and Spock, because
Right.
Spock never showed emotions. He was stoic. They were working, this was a ritual that was being worked. It was a personification of a higher ideal and concept, condensed condensed to one character, actually two characters, but condensed into one character. Now, a character is like a letter, isn't it?
Yes.
But it is a letter personified. We call them characters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, that those are characters of the language.
Right.
And even when they are personified, they are called characters that act out what? The narrative, the allegory, the story. So this is exactly what they do, and it's a powerful technique, family. Powerful technique. We connected Spock with the prototypical devil because it's said that years after, no, I'm sorry, it said here, bear with me, that Gene Roddenberry, the creator of Star Trek, deliberately intended for Spock to have archetypal devil features. That was an intention to make him look like that. And we know that the devil is just what? The other side of the coin of God. That God and the devil are the same thing. We're going to prove this. We're going to prove this in an indirect way today. And we proved it yesterday. The Logos, as Mahomet Baphomet, provokes the woman from the darkness. Also, years after the Star Trek cult favorite, Leonard Nimoy learned that the ritual he was forbidden to observe invoked Shekinah, the feminine manifestation of God. The V shaped hand gesture represents the Hebrew character, Sheen, the first letter of Shekinah's name. So we really decoded all of this yesterday, all right? And we looked that and saw that Spock, that character, was really a representation of the melanated male and female, melanated beings. And I had mentioned that Doc McCoy would almost curse Spock out and use uh, these derogatory terms or so-called derogatory terms to describe him. Here's a quote. I'm trying to thank you, you pointy-eared hobgoblin. And again, are you out of your Vulcan mind? Spock was a Vulcan. And in times past, family, because we did not know our history, we couldn't make this connection. We are the actual hobgoblins. We are the actual devils and demons represented in popular culture. Why? Because of the inversion. Our divinity was inverted. It was reversed. Are you all with me?
That's perfect. Perfect. Right.
So, and it was personified within the popular culture. A hobgoblin.
Okay.
So, and it was a hobgoblin is described as something that causes fear or disquiet. Let me tell you, the only thing that the white man, or the so-called white man, the aberrant being, those individuals that oppress us now, the only thing that they actually fear is us reconnecting with our divinity, with our true identity that did not take place, now see, within the simulated reality when we incarnated in. We were divine and divinity before we came here.
Absolutely.
And that was diminished in the fall and then inverted, reversed as a result of the fall. So this hobgoblin in the fall and then inverted.
We're getting some feedback.
Yes. If you could, mute your phones, mute your microphones as much as possible. So also this term hobgoblin, refers to, family, a clown, a prankster, a trickster, one that makes mischief. That when we think about the nature of the melanated individual, that we are like that. We are like that in all we do. We can be playing a sport or doing something that is very serious. All right, Muhammad Ali being an example of this, a personification of this, that he was in a very dangerous sport. Now, see, very deadly sport. You can get killed in that ring.
Yeah.
And he was always clowning, always joking. He was a trickster, a prankster. That is a part of our energetic makeup. We have to we have to take possession of these things again and recognize them. We've been the educational system, compulsory educational system, and the programming has taught us to do what? Vilify everything that is natural to us, that is organic to us. And so we're constantly saying and even telling us, be serious. Be serious. This is not a joking manner, a joking manner. And we've taken on this persona that we have to be serious when doing that. We have to be serious, and that we can't be joking but we have the ability to do that and still perform at the highest level. Goblin is just another term for devil, a mischievous and ugly fairy. All right? Somebody with an impudent tongue. So we traced this yesterday and we looked actually at representations of hobgoblins, and they are called Kalikanzaros. Kalikanzaros. And these are the representation of the Kalikanzaros that are bound. You see the one on the left that is bound, all right, held between heaven and earth. But he is obviously a melanated individual. and to the left you see another, always dark skinned, melaninated individuals. All right. And within the middle, hobgoblin books, um, again associated with the serpent and the tree in the garden. We talked about this yesterday. So we've reached the point in our review that I want to get to, because this is going to be a test for where we're at. And at this point in the, we had gone through much material yesterday, from the starting point a little bit beyond where we began today. And when I got to this point yesterday, when we were searching out our identity in these terms, hobgoblin and Vulcan, I was reading this portion. And I read, it was only after his death that Nimrod appears to have been deified. Then, retrospectively, he was worshipped as the child of the sun, or the Son incarnate. In his own lifetime, however, he set up no higher pretensions than that of being Baal Khan, priest of Baal. Baal Khan, priest of Baal. From
Eitai,
yes,
just for my clear myself. Did you say Nimrod became the priest of Baal?
that's correct.
Oh, okay. I just want, I got, okay.
I know.
I got it.
Yeah,
I
you
got
got me. I know. From which
it. Right, right.
the other name of the Roman fire god Vulcan. Remember, I said write down the word Roman. Vulcan in Roman changes to Vulcan, is evidently derived.
Vulcan, right,
Right.
right, right.
So Spock was a Vulcan. All right. From the word Vulcan, uh, Vulcan associated with Nimrod. Listen, everything in the history of Vulcan exactly agrees with that of Nimrod. Vulcan was the most ugly and deformed of all the gods. That gets back to this word hobgoblin. All right? Hobgoblin being a mischievous and ugly fairy. Stay with me now. Vulcan was the most ugly and deformed of all gods. Nimrod, all over the world, is represented with the features and complexion of a Negro. This is how
Wow.
this is how we are represented in the inverse, all right, and the decline. This is how we're represented in the inverse and the decline. Spock is how we're represented in the inverse and decline. The devil tarot card is how we're represented in the inverse, not divinity, but devilish, demonic, denigrated. But it is our divinity through the perception and thought of our oppressors. We have to realize that. However, they know the true identity. Spock wasn't a bad guy. He was represented as a good guy. But had he been melanated with these features, we would automatically say that's the devil. The same way with Namor, which is the inversion of the word Roman. Namor, the submariner. He's represented as the good guy, the Lord of the sea, the King of Atlantis, Emperor of Atlantis, ruler of the sea, or ruler of the underground, ruler of the abyss, the bottomless pit. Those are terms, when we hear the terms, the angel of the bottomless pit, no way, Nasi, do we associate that with ourselves.
Absolutely not.
the Lord of the underworld, the Prince of Darkness. Those all have what? Evil, bad connotations. But when we see Spock, again, because our mentality has been inverted, we do not see ourselves. When we see Namor, the Submariner, because of how he's represented, we do not see ourselves. But those are compressed images of who we actually are, and we proved that yesterday.
Yeah.
Continuing on. And they said here that these representations are actually the representations of a Negro, of a melanated individual. Though Vulcan was so ugly that when he sought a wife, all the beautiful goddesses rejected him with horror. Yet destiny, the irrevocable, interposed and pronounced the decree by which Venus, that's the bright and morning star, which is represented, Nasik, in the inverse as Lucifer.
Right.
This is the hidden feminine. The hidden feminine. They're working a ritual here. The most beautiful of the goddess was united or married to the most unsightly of gods. So, in spite of the black and Cushite melanated features of Nimrod, his appearance as a Negro, he had for his queen Semiramis, the most beautiful of women. The wife of Vulcan, listen, was noted for her infidelities and licentiousness. Now, when we got to this point, I have joked yesterday that she was a freak. All right? Now, when I say something like this, automatically, Nasik, the program begins to run.
Yeah.
Eitai said something negative about the sister. Eitai
Right.
just said something negative about the sister.
Right.
I'm
Right.
going
Right.
to prove to you all that you are 100% wrong.
Right. Right.
But Eitai, ain't nothing wrong with being a freak.
Listen, it never has been. Now we're gonna talk about this because we have to accept the full range of our divine identity. But Nasik, this programming, this translation is not going to allow us to do that very easily.
Right.
I'm going to show you that there is no negative connotation at all, except one about being a freak. Hard to accept, but I'm telling you, if you had a problem with me saying it yesterday, if you have a problem with me saying it today, Nasik, the program is running. The logic
That,
program is running. The logo program
absolutely.
is running.
Right. Power to define is what? Inverted to make sure that that which was divine and holy be perceived, completely in opposition.
Right.
Completely in opposition.
And
That's the power to define.
I'll say
Yeah.
it this way. Everything that they told you was bad about being a nigger is divine.
Yeah. Right. Right.
So now see, the ancestors pointed this out to me yesterday. So I went back and I had even said, you'll hear on the tape that I quoted Funkadelic off of the song
Right.
Knee Deep, because they were telling us something. They were putting family and inversion aspect into the earth back there in 1979, in the 70s. Our people, our prophets were evoking divinity in us by use of sound, by use of videos and pictures and live stage performances to evoke, to get us to evoke and call up this divine aspect, Nasi, that is in us.
It started a little earlier.
Yes, it did.
It started in the 60s like everything else.
Yes.
And when those, the poets, that's what they were doing.
Absolutely.
Didn't understand it then necessarily, but that's what they was doing during the 60s. We perceived it just the opposite. Right.
Correct. Because that program family was still running. And all of these individuals came forth to break, to reverse it, to cause a sudden reversal in that process.
Right. Right.
She's a big old freak. I said the divine feminine is a big old freak. Hard to hear. Almost insulting. Oh, that's blasphemous. That's disrespectful. Disrespectful. But I'm going to stand by it. I'm going to stand by it. And we have to get comfortable with that nigger aspect of us, because that is going to be our power.
Yeah.
She's a big old freak. The girl is a big old freak. She's a freak of the week. She's a big old freak, just a big old freak. She's a freak of the week. She did the freak, never missing a beat. Yeah. She did the freak. Boy, was it neat. Yeah. She's a freak. The girl is a freak. The girl is never misses a beat. Yay, yay. Not just knee deep. She was totally deep when she did the freak with me. That's from 1979. Let's look at the definition of version that you brought to us 3 lessons ago, Nasi. We're going to look at this. Now, version, we're going to concentrate on 2 aspects of it. It means a translation, number 1. It means a translation.
Right.
So, in the inversion, we translate everything based on logic and based on human thought and human perception. Now, we went over a little bit earlier how in the book of Acts, let's back up. In the book of Genesis, everybody spoke the same language. In the book of Genesis, the 11th chapter. But that singularity of language could not continue. Our ancestors had to interrupt that, because what our ancient ancestors in the allegory were attempting to do was to repeat something that had already been done at a certain stage of our devolution, at a certain stage when we were closer to divinity. But we had to what? Relinquish that divinity, family.
Right.
In order to descend fully into the physical realms, into humanity. And then at that point, we would what? Ascend back. Genesis 11.
Right.
They confounded, our ancestors confounded the languages so that
couldn't happen.
So it could not happen. And created what?
Wow.
A multiplicity of languages. A multiplicity of languages. So we would have to translate.
Right.
During the dissension. We would have to take on a different version if we wanted to. So that means we couldn't be unified. That we couldn't be unified until the point where we reached total decomposition, total disintegration, and then we would begin to do what? Ascend again. So the descent would be achieved by a confounding of languages that would create diversity, that would create miscommunication. Let's read the book of Acts again. We're going to Acts the 2nd chapter because, again, this is something that did not actually happen, but our ancestors, again, using a narrative, an allegorical narrative, painted a picture of what would happen in the ascension. So if the descension would involve language and the confounding of language, then the ascension would involve a language as well. Look for the word confound. The book of Acts, the 2nd chapter, and we'll read down to verse 6 to start out. Actually, we'll read down to verse 8. And when the day of Pentecost was fully come, those of you that have been on the call recently under this teaching know the importance of 7. Pentecost is Shavuot in Hebrew. 7 sevens, all right? So this is total completion. Now see, this is to represent the descent happening totally, completed 7 times over, all right, throughout time, that it is totally and completely time for the ascent. They were all with one accord.
Right.
They were all with one accord and in one place. That is the same environment, the same situation that was in Genesis, the 11th chapter. They had stopped in the land of Shinar, and they were all there with one accord, in one place, with the notion, with the idea, with the intent to build a tower, right? But we had been known as the tower builders in our earliest stages of incarnation, family. We went over that. So our ancestors say, no, we're not going to hold on to this. We've done this before. We have to continue this ascent. So the confounding of language. Now that occurred, that this allegorical narrative is talking about when the dissension had fully occurred, and suddenly there came a sound from heaven as of a rushing mighty wind, and it filled the house where they were sitting. And there appeared unto them cloven tongues of fire, and it sat upon each of them. And they were filled with the Holy Ghost. Again, here's this language, and began to speak with other tongues, as the Spirit gave them utterance. This is the return back to this universal language.
And right, Eitai, we just one word, we gotta say it so that the universal language is wholeness.
It's wholeness.
This holy, remember
not,
holy, now what we did with the word, that's all I want to say. Make sure that we remove Holy Spirit
right,
in the language of unified wholeness. Okay, go ahead.
That's what it is, absolutely. And they began to speak with other tongues as the Spirit gave them utterance. Now listen, this is going to show that this was a unified language. Now don't think in terms of Hebrew, or because the rest of the narrative is going to show you that it wasn't one of those languages like that. Remember, a picture is worth 1,000 words. We didn't always speak a verbal language like that anyway. And we have the ability to understand things that are nonverbal. And there were dwelling in Jerusalem Jews, devout men out of every nation under heaven. That is a result of obviously from the allegorical standpoint, Nasik, of what happened in Genesis 11. Now,
right,
when this was noised abroad, the multitude came together and were confounded. The language was confounded in Genesis 11 to what? Aid in the descent. Now, in the incent, the ascent rather, or the ascension, the language would confound. Why? Because
Yes, yes,
because
right.
that's a flip, that's a reversal, that's a
That's a
total
reversal.
inversion. Recognize that's a total inversion, because that every man heard them speak in his own language. And they were all amazed and marveled, saying to one another, Behold, are not all these which speak Galileans? And how hear we every man in our own tongue, wherein we were born? Parthians and Medes, Elamites, dwellers in Mesopotamia, Judea, Cappadocia, Pontus, and Asia, Phrygia, Pamphylia, in Egypt, in the parts of Libya about Cyrene, and strangers of Rome, Roman, Namor, Jews and proselytes, Cretes and Arabians. We do hear them speak in our tongues the wonderful works of God. There was no interpretation necessary, now see. The program,
Right.
the programming, and they were all amazed and were in doubt, saying to one another, What meaneth this? So, this idea of a version, translating it, most, to some degree or another, when I made the statement that the divine feminine is a big old freak, the program translates it.
Yes.
We understand that from human terms and divine terms, and we're a little put back by that, a little put off by that, maybe even insulted, maybe even shocked a bit. But I'm going to prove to you. Funkadelic put this out in 79. There were other artists even before that, a year before. Chic, on the album Say Chic, had a song, Le Freak, where it told us to do what? Freak out. That was an evocation. It was an evocation, and they did it with style. They did it with style and flair. Whereas a year later, in 79, George Clinton did it with funk. Then, about 5 years later, Midnight Star came out with the song Freakazoid. Freakazoid. And if a sister was called a Freakazoid, you know, with the translation of that is to be insulted. The Barcades told us to get up and dance to this rhythm and to make it a freak show on the dance floor. See, we don't understand our rituals. We don't understand how powerful our music is. But I tell you, our oppressors do. And I'm going to prove it to you. We got to
So
take
before you,
Go ahead.
um, so not to offend anybody, but so Abba was wrong when he wrote in, I'm not sure which book it was, but he spoke about soul music and soul food and how did we reduce ourselves to being the freak of the week and other terms of that nature dealing with the music.
Correct. We going
Okay.
I'm going to show you that this program is powerful. Translation, this inversion is powerful. It's powerful, and it's all pervasive. We've all, to one degree or another, have been affected by it. So let us get into the definition of freak, and you all stop me when it's negative. Stop me when it does not conform itself to our ascension and what is necessary. Freak. This is the number one definition of the noun freak. The 1560s. Listen now, see, sudden and apparently
Talk to me.
sudden and apparently causeless turn of mind.
Wow.
To be a freak, you have the ability to change your mentality suddenly. You have the ability to change your perception suddenly. Does that sound negative?
No.
And now see, it is essential to what we're talking about as it relates to reversing this inversion process and aiding our ascension.
Absolutely necessary.
And now see, they say it's of unknown origin. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Of course. And it says perhaps.
Hey, John.
Go ahead.
Just wanna back Yadiel. You gotta remember one thing, family. You know, we're gonna give credence where credence is due.
Correct.
But we gotta remember one thing. Everybody on this planet,
Yes, sir.
everybody on this planet, melanated and otherwise, fell into the descent, lost all knowledge of everything. Everybody on their way back, you understand, was not at the same place at the same time.
That's correct.
That is to say that when Abba gave whatever he gave it according to where he was at.
That's correct.
And his perception was his perception. But now we go back and we see as we have reached the fullness of time, I guarantee you he would have to agree that he was wrong at that particular, now that he wants it revealed. You follow what I'm saying?
Okay.
Just wanted to make sure that we clear.
Perfect.
Yeah. You know, a lot of
Okay.
things that we stated, a lot of things that we taught, we find that later on, you know, it was what? Part of the process.
Correct.
It was not correct.
And what we're doing is all we're doing is trying to perfect the ascension process. And we know that we
Right.
have to kill this programming and totally invert our perception and our thoughts. So freak
Yes.
means a sudden and apparently causeless turn of mind of unknown origin. Perhaps it is from a dialect, survival of a word related to Middle English, frickin', to move nimbly and briskly. Does that sound like I'm insulting?
Wow.
Does that sound like I'm insulting you?
Oh, you see, power doesn't find. Just don't understand words. Language.
From Old English, frickin', meaning to dance. This is what our brothers knew from their soul, Yadiel. Get up and dance. Freak show on the dance floor. Don't miss a beat, because this was all to aid in real time our ascension. This conversion process, now see, back to our divinity. This is an aspect of our divinity.
Shalom and wholeness, family.
Yes. Shalom.
Oh,
I'm just coming, and I've been with the doctors, well, medical people all day.
No.
But what that brings to mind is some of the words that were used in our slang. When I first heard them, like, man, that's bad. That's a bad suit you got on, or whatever.
Absolutely.
You know, everything we have grown into that was good for us and our best interest was turned around for us to stay away from it to make it negative.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There is a free king attested to in the mid 15th century, apparently meaning capricious behavior. We're going to define that word capricious. And this is going to take us right back, Nasi, to this devil image. It's going to take us right back to the imaging of divinity, our divinity as demonic and satanic. It means to be whimsical, all right? Freck, eager, zealous. Stop me when I get to something negative. Bold, brave, fierce. That's what they don't want you to be. But our brothers that put this music
Right.
out, they were guided by the ancestors, now see, to put this out, meaning that we had to become freakish, we had to become eager and zealous and bold and brave as it
Right.
related to our ascension, as it related to this reversal. And it says right here, see freak, the second definition. Now here we go. Watch this. First, in freak of nature, that originated, Nasik, in 1839, which was later popular in the variety show advertisement for bearded ladies, albinos, albinos,
Mm.
albinos,
Right.
melanin recessive, aberrant.
Right. Right.
Let's go on to the second definition. Did y'all find anything negative beside the word albinos here that had any negative connotation?
No.
And the term freak show, before we go, was attested to in 1887. 1887. The word capricious, because they said that it was capricious behavior, or it was a capricious notion, all right? Capricious just means humorous, and it refers to our clownish or our prankster, trickster, mischievous nature. Do y'all see this? They've outlawed our humor even. It also, capricious means apt to change the mind suddenly. That's what's required. Whimsical. Are y'all seeing that? It's also related to the word caprice. And caprice, again, means a sudden change or start of the mind without apparent motive. And this is what happens when we reach these points in time that are critical transition points, that we naturally become capricious and that we change on a dime. Everybody on this call, for no apparent reason, you were going along on one course of life, and all of a sudden something mentally interrupted you, and you could no longer stay on that course. And your mentality, your perception was affected. Am I saying anything wrong? Nasik, for no apparent
No, no.
for no apparent reason.
Right.
Right.
just on a whim. And it's from the word capro. Caprice is related to the word capro, which means goat, which is related to the devil card and in the representation of the devil with the horn and the goat's legs. Jeremiah 50, remove out of the midst of Babylon, leave the simulated reality, go forth out of the land of the Chaldeans, and be as what? He goats before the flock. Again, we associated the devil Capricorn card with this spot character.
What was that again, Jeremiah?
Jeremiah 50 and I'm sorry, Jeremiah 50 and 8. Jeremiah 50 and 8. We associated this spot character, which we've proven is a personification of our divine aspect, our divine identity, that they deliberately gave him the features of what was the classic archetypal devil. And we see it, that goat representation in the hobgoblin, the torso and the upper body of a man, of a black man, of a melanated man, as a matter of fact, with the legs of a goat and the tail of a goat. All right? You can't escape this, Nasi. Our ancestors did a job. They did a thorough job of this because we would have had to find our way back. And then to find our way back, we would have to determine, family, is that program still running in your mind? Do you have a hang up about your divine characteristics?
Right.
In other words, do you have a problem with being a nigger? Do you have problems with being a hobgoblin or a devil? We're not talking about this from a moralistic standpoint. We're talking about that's human. That's for humans. We're looking at this through a divine lens, through the lens of divinity that make no moralistic judgments. And the zodiac sign Capricorn, caprice, capricious, Capricorn, Capro, and the devil tarot card. Listen, this card is ruled by Capricorn, the goat. Actually, half goat, Nasi, and half what? Half fish. Half fish, because we are the Lord of the underworld. We are the rulers of the sea, the rulers of the water, the rulers of the darkness, the prince and princesses of the darkness, the angel of the abyss.
That's inversion.
This is inversion.
The inversion did a job.
Right. They made that look, you know, the program makes it look what? You know, I don't want to be that, but that's exactly what it is. Listen, at the bottom of the image, we see the divine masculine and feminine elements. Everyone can see that. That is online. And they're chained together about the neck. They're standing side by side at the foot of this devil figure, chained together at the neck with one chain. We see the divine masculine and feminine elements with chains around their neck. This symbolizes our bondage to our human perception and thoughts. That is the logos program the logical thought, logical reasoning, logical language, etc., during the descent and fall. The two lovers are held in bondage to their human nature. If we took a closer look at the image, you will notice that the chains that seem to hold the lovers are actually loose. In other words, they can get out of it. They are non-binding. They can get out of this bind. We can get out of this human bondage whenever we want to. The inference is that the couple are merely mental slaves. That mental program is running. That logical program is running. Who in fact possess the power to be free. The Devil Tarot card is a warning, reminding us that we are divine beings merely having a human experience, and that there is more to us. Furthermore, the imagery of the card informs us that the highly illusory matrix, merely a flawed physical version, is merely a flawed physical version of the organic reality. It's just a version of it, and everything connected to it. Thus, our divine being is far more important than our material, physical, fleshly aspect. We have to keep that in mind. Now, the second definition of a freak is a brave man or warrior. So I don't mind being called a freak. Not at all. A bold man, a bold warrior. Thus, Nasi, be as the he-goats before the flocks.
Right, Eitai.
It means to be greedy, eager, bold, impudent. That's that smart mouth again. All right? That's that sword, Nasi, that double-edged sword that comes out.
Right.
We all know that we have that tongue. That we can say something as insulting as possible, and the individual gotta laugh because of the way we say it. Because of that rhythm, that beat that we have to it. And thus, Javon Curse, football player, born September 3rd, 1976, nicknamed the Freak. The Freak is a former football player who was a defensive end in the National Football League for 11 seasons during the late 90s and 2000s. This is why they called him a freak. Both his unusual speed, 4'4", 340, 86-inch wingspan, tip of the finger to tip of the finger, coupled with a 48-inch vertical leap, greatly impressed coaches and earned him the name the Freak. Were they insulting him?
Absolutely not.
Or were they praising his athletic, super physical, metaphysical abilities that occur as a result of melanin, of him being a melanated being? We know that that wasn't meant to insult. Giannis Antetokounmpo, I can't even say his name, Antetokounmpo, whatever his name is, of the NBA's Milwaukee is 23 years old. 23 years old, a hair under 7 feet. Now, see, he can play all 5 positions on the basketball court, because I've seen him do it.
What do they call him?
They call him the Greek Freak.
The Greek Freak, right.
Since there are 13 letters, in his last name, most of them consonants, he is usually referred to as Giannis or the Greek Freak. He's called
Right.
that. He's called that because he is Greek and is doing things on the basketball court people have never seen before.
Yeah.
But his size and his coordination, but it's his size and his coordination that intimidate. He has a wingspan of 7'3", and his hands,
Yeah.
which are a foot long, are thought to be the largest in the league. So again,
Yeah.
we got to determine now, we got to come out of this cloud now, see,
Got to.
of humanity. And the simplest way that we could do that is just accept and welcome what is natural to us, what is organic to us. And society
Yeah.
tells us that that's being a nigger. Only if you're under some type of moralistic code will you ever think that. We're going to get into some other words and some other aspects and redefine them. But now see, this oppressor says this, and this has to do with our physical nationality as well. Now see, the only reason, let me ask you all this question. Here we are in America. We're in North America. Just about all of us on this phone was born there, right? We were born here in this nation.
Right.
We are the only people, North Americans are the only people, Nasi, that don't have a nobility represented. The only nobility that we have is the king and queen of soul. James Brown and Aretha Franklin.
Yeah.
Right.
And you know why that is? It's because we don't know who we are. We were mixed up in this, inverted, converted, especially in North America. That's why they call this a melting pot. This was something that was deliberately done. And the rest of the world who don't have a claim, the Euro Gentiles or the average individuals that don't have a legitimate claim, and I'll prove that, to nobility, because we are not using it, they just take it up and they use it. We discussed this, Nasi, in our discussion and in the class relative to the black nobility and the king and queen of England.
Right. Right.
That they have usurped our lineage. And you got these people celebrating Meghan Markle marrying the boy, the young prince, and looking at that like that's a come up. Nah, it's a come up for them. That's why they're doing it. Ain't no come up for us. Ain't no fairy tale story. It's a nightmare. And the same way with this term freak. We decided, because we got all religious and superstitious, Nasi, and didn't crack a dictionary when we felt insulted, or we felt that we should have been, we should have been insulted, that we didn't look at the dictionary and understand that this had ancient and very powerful energetic implications for us and usage. So I'm going to show y'all something here real quick. And when I was researching this, I was appalled at this. I was really shocked, Nasi. The first thing I Googled was the term freak of the week. I simply Googled that term. Look at the images that come up. Do you all see George Clinton or Parliament anywhere?
And let's see. Oh, what's all this?
Since you are, I know, since
I can't see as I see George up to this point.
you look, you don't see any image of where you see a rap group that took that term, but mostly what comes up is images. Look, is that image.
Hmm.
If you don't use it,
No
What image is
George.
that?
huh?
What image is that comes up?
It's an albino. It's a European playing
Wow.
guitar with long blonde hair. They know the power
Wow.
of the words that relate to you. And they've taken it, family, and they've made a cartoon out of it. They're imitating what George Clinton did in creating a mythological, allegorical tale for us and narrative that was very powerful. They've taken this over. Now, I put in after that, and we'll get into this a little bit more, I put in Freakazoid. Now, automatically, I'm thinking Midnight Stars coming up. Look what comes up. Are you kidding me?
You really kidding? Look at, oh Lord.
If we're just
Yeah,
the way that
really.
the way that we do not seek to find out our true nationality as it relates to the flesh, family, someone else is using it. Someone else they will use it because they know how powerful it is. Concentrate on this character Freakazoid. They then took it over and redefined it. And now, see, we thinking that the power that to define is something that is happening that happened in the past.
Yeah. Right.
This
Right.
is ongoing. This is ongoing. This is recent now. Freakazoid, and watch how this Nasi relates directly to our identity in the simulated matrix, which is like a computer program. Freakazoid is an American animated television series created by Bruce Timm and Paul Dini and developed by Tom Ruegger for the programming block of the WB. For the programming block of the WB. Something is being programmed. Moving forward, the series chronicles the adventures of the title character, Freakazoid, a manic, insane superhero who battles with an array of supervillains. The show also features many episodes of adventures of other bizarre superheroes. The show was produced by Amblin Television. and Warner Brothers Animation, Amblin Television. This is getting interesting. The cartoon was the third animated series produced by collaboration of Steven Spielberg, stop,
Uh-huh.
and Warner Brothers Animation during the animation renaissance of the 1990s. Who on this call knew that there was an animation renaissance in the 90s?
Yep.
Now y'all got to understand that the term freak came into popular culture in terms of the music in 1978 when Chic came out with Le Freak. Then we saw
Yep.
George Clinton a year later put the funk to it and put it within a cartoonish allegory talking about the freak of the week. We'll get to that later. Then in 1983, Midnight Star came out with Freakazoid. The Bar-Kays a year later, Freak Show on the Dance Floor. The first thing they do in this so-called animation renaissance is to take the latest term, Freakazoid, or one of the latest terms, and animate it. And the programming block of the WB did that. Y'all think this is not important? That this is just something that they're doing? Just to do it? They are trying to access our divinity. I didn't even know that this show, and if the Freakazoid, I know who their target audience is. I already know. Not our children. We too busy telling our children that being a freak is bad. And don't call yourself. We running that program. They running an entirely different program. The other two productions, animated productions, was in 1986, The American Tale, and then The Land Before Time, 1988. They were programming people before then. We won't get into this, but this is very interesting. Now see that a program was being systematically run here.
Yeah.
And Spielberg is connected with the movie The Color Purple, which he did immediately after, a year after, Freak Show on the Dance Floor came on. You don't think, now he creates one called Freakazoid. You don't think he's what that their eye is on that, our music?
Absolutely.
It is.
Absolutely.
And in The Color Purple, this was a very popular movie and a very powerful inversion programming and reversal programming. We'll get to The Color Purple a little bit later. We talked about it before. But in The Color Purple, I'll capsulize it. The black man or black men in The Color Purple, this was the first time that this happened, that black men were doing everything to the black woman that the white man did. In The Color Purple, every black man that was shown there in that movie was the big thing that came out was that there were no positive images of black men. This was deliberate because in that movie, you go back and decode it. Every black man in that movie either said or did something to the black women represented there. that the white man did. The movie starts out with Celie being raped by whom she thought was her adoptive father. Is that not correct?
She thought it was her natural father, but it was her stepfather.
That's correct. The physical violence, the beatings by Mr., the separation of sisters, families, that's in the news today.
Yep.
That's what the slave master did. Everything in that movie that black man did, it was a reversal, it was an inversion, was what happened to us in history. This freakazoid is the same thing. Let me go on. We can't ignore these things. The show's title character is the superhero alter ego of a geeky 16-year-old. That's their target audience. Later changed to 17-year-old. Why did they change it? That's their target audience, family. Dexter Douglas, who attends Harry Connick High School. His name is a parody of the various superheroes, alliterative names. Bruce Banner, Peter Parker. Those Bruce Banner, the Hulk, all that represents us. Peter Parker, Spider-Man, that represents us. Aspects of our divinity. Dexter, listen, gained his ability, Nasik, from a computer bug activated by a secret key sequence that must be typed, a reference to the Pentium FD4 bug. The sequence of the keys is, and they got it written down, as seen by Roddy McStew, types the combination in the chip, Act 2. The bug manifests when the user presses delete after entering the string and was first activated when Dexter's cat crawled onto the keyboard. Now they include the cat in there because this is a reference. This is a reference to Bastet or Bastet, the Egyptian cat god, which was featured prominently in the movie Black Panther.
Yes. Yeah.
This is a set program.
Yeah.
Becoming absorbed into the computer. This is like how we emanated in here, family. Becoming absorbed into his computer and instantly gaining all the information of the internet. We lost it in the in the incarnation. Freakazoid has enhanced strength and endurance. We had it, but it became it diminished, Nasik, during the descent. Extraordinary speed and ability, and negligible amounts of sanity. These changes make him a powerful and fearsome force for upholding freedom and righteousness, unless, of course, he gets distracted by something like a bear riding a motorcycle. So this is an obvious attempt at reversal. This is Nasik, them building their Tower of Babel. And why? Because we've abandoned, Yadiel, we've abandoned this term freak and the power that it manifests in us. The power to what? Evoke this power of inversion within us. A quick change, Nasik, a quick turn.
Eitai.
Yes.
This ancestor just gave me something now. Now we understand something, what I'm trying to explain.
Go ahead.
All of us already know this, but I'm just going to bring it out. Now we understand the power of the church. Why was the church, you understand, the church became a part of the system for one reason, to try to keep us from what? Using
That's correct.
what the freak nature, or what we knew was the divine nature, to cause us to pursue something that is called righteous and moral and
That's
holy
correct.
and all of that.
Well,
That's the purpose of the church.
that's correct. Absolutely correct.
That's the purpose of the church.
Outlawed
You know,
dancing.
take us away from who we really are.
Outlawed
Wow.
dancing, outlawed playing music. See, this is what we think being spiritual is.
Right, right,
Outlaw dancing, outlaw playing music. You can dance, but you can't dance. You can only dance a certain way.
right.
You got to be modest. You got to be prim and proper. It's not our nature. That's not our nature. Now, see, the hardest thing that I ever did was attempting to be a Christian.
Yeah.
Hardest thing that I ever did.
Yeah.
And I wanted to do it 100% with all my might. And I tried to give myself.
That's the problem.
I tried to give myself an out when I was first going to join the church. But I went to my pastor. I said, Pastor, I said, the one thing that I can't do. I said, this thing about turning the other cheek. I said, I can't do it. And it just so happened that my pastor, he was a boxer as well. He boxed with my mother's uncle, right, in the same stable. And he was like, I can't do it either. But this was the hardest thing, this turn the other cheek type thing. Man, there's so many things that I did that I regret to this day. That was against my nature.
Yep.
I'm not a pacifist at all.
There you go.
And that thing, but it bothered me for a while. So this is, I mean, what you're saying is absolutely true. And
Man.
they want us to, they want us to dance in a certain way. Now, let's deal with this for a second before we close. Are we creators? Are we the creators?
Yes, we are creative.
All
We're
right.
creative.
That so when we manifest into the physical realms, now see, we carry that with us. How else would we dance? How else do you want a creator to dance in the physical realms? Why would you make him or her dance any other way than that they were trying to create something physically with their bodies? We call that twerking. We call that shaking a tail feather. Why wouldn't it be performed?
Right.
If you're a creator, it would have to translate from divine creation to physical creation. So everything would be sexy. And religion tells us to suppress all of that. We have to start to look,
Yes, it does.
to view these things from a divine perspective. So again, as we close, I Googled Freak of the Week, and this band came up exclusively. 3 white boys in a rock power trio. They call themselves Freak Kitchen. And they're from Sweden, very popular, rose to fame. Look, George Clinton is making music now that is relevant and significant. He's touring now and started out, now see, in the 60s. This allegory that he created has staying power because it has innate divine power within it. Everyone has sampled his music and continues to sample the music. They wrote this song. I want you all to hear the lyrics to this song. It's called Freak of the Week by Freak Kitchen, and it's from the album Cooking with Pagans. Cooking with Pagans. Paganism is our true spirituality. When they talk about paganism,
Yeah,
they're
right,
talking about our true spirituality.
right.
But if I would call you a pagan or a heathen, you would feel insulted by that. But that's
Yes,
our true
yes.
spirituality. So it starts out line 1, I'm the freak of the week. Line 2, look, I am the new black. I am the new black.
Hey, what? Oh,
I'm the
Lord.
new black.
Because they're wearing black? Listen to that.
No, they talk about that they got a new melanin. If we not going to activate this melanin, they going to try to activate it.
Wow.
That's why all the ink is over their bodies sometimes. Trying to turn black.
That's why they harvesting organs.
Absolutely. Eating babies. I am opium to thee, will do anything for popularity, mutilate myself, become an amputee, like me, won't you like me? I'm your freak of the week, another freak of the week, bigger than any WikiLeak. Blow myself up for free, break my neck in HD. I'm your freak of the week. Listen, spreading like the plague. That word is nega. Didn't we say that the word nega is plague?
Right, right.
And it relates to what, Nasi? Leprosy.
Right, right.
They know what they doing. Listen.
Wow.
Hole in one, touche. 7 million views in a single day. Who's your daddy now? Who's leading the way? Now you know they talking to us.
Absolutely, absolutely.
See, if we don't pick these things back up, they're going to continue to use it and continue to keep us, Nasi, in an inverted position.
Yes, yes, yes.
So that we cannot,
Yes.
so that it's very difficult for us to have this change. The divinity is in us.
Yes.
It represents those things that they've told us to suppress, that all religious systems, all superstitious religious systems told us to suppress. Because if anyone told you that a freak was a bad thing, they were superstitious.
Yeah.
Superstition means you believe, some Stevie Wonder said it. When you believe in things that you don't understand, what happens? You suffer. We have not found one negative connotation to the word freak. But we've all been offended by that term, meaning that we've simply, Nasi, been offended by an aspect of our divinity. We've simply been offended by an aspect of our divinity. Go right ahead.
Now, I was just going to say that the ancestors put this masterful piece together. Absolutely. And you can see that even though we wanted to get out of it, some of us wanted to get out of it, but the time had not come. So as a result, you had to put in a perfect plan to allow it to run its course so we could actually what? Fulfill it. And now as we begin to manifest the time, we begin to see things that we just could not see during that sleep.
That's correct. That's correct. That's correct.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
I'm going to give us a clue to a little preview of what we're going to talk about tomorrow. This is in the notes, family. If you want to go, the notes that I sent out this morning. This is in the notes that I sent out this morning. I was mindful to include it because we are at the point where we must manifest this power. Now, actually, I'm going to go to the notes that I sent you on this. The notes were titled "The Inversion Reversal of the Divine Word Language in the Descent, the Exaltation of the Logos, Human Logic, and the Abasement of Divine Mental Faculties." So I'm going to go to this portion where we'll be picking up tomorrow because this is very, very important. Because, we just don't want to put a lot of information out here and just do it for putting out a lot of information. We want to use everything that we are learning here to activate, to reconnect with our divinity and activate these divine mental faculties and capabilities, these divine mental powers. And the next session that we're going to get back to this, but we had to look at actually where we were, So now we're ready to get back into this activation process. And this next session we're going to do is called the magical divine power of inversion and reversal. This is not just about words.
All right.
We're going to break this thing down tomorrow, and we're going to begin there. So you have your notes. In your notes is on page 14, the notes that I sent out today. So go over that, look over that, and we'll be ready to go tomorrow. But we're going to end right here and ask if there are any questions or comments.